Hello, everybody. Steven Ruderman here with your Insomniac Lunatic Fringe World Series Game 7 postgame. For the first time in 25 years, we have a repeat World Series winner, the Dodgers, with an incredible win and an incredible game to wrap up an incredible World Series, a true fall classic, an incredible postseason, an incredible 2025 Major League Baseball season all around. They win 5-4 in 11 innings, and they repeat as world champions. With the way the season and this postseason had gone, when the Blue Jays came back home up 3-2, I just knew the Dodgers were going to win Game 6 and send this to a Game 7 because all I can say is it just had to happen. The ball getting stuck in the bottom of the wall in the ninth inning last night in Game 6, which was the correct call. All right, because when you have guys who are running around the bases and you got to field a ball quickly and it's lodged in there, it's a lot harder to pull it out of there when it's lodged in like that. It was the correct call. It was a horrible break for the Blue Jays, but it was the correct call. So Game 7 tonight, a matchup of two future first ballot Hall of Famers in Shohei Ohtani and Max Scherzer. Shohei gets a leadoff base hit and gets to third, but the Dodgers are unable to come through. The Blue Jays wasted a bases-loaded opportunity in the bottom of the second, and the Blue Jays just wasted a ton of opportunities in these last two games. Third inning, Bo Bichette's up with runners at first and second. He hits a towering home run to left center field, and the Blue Jays have a 3-0 lead. And Bichette's presence has been humongous for the Blue Jays. He hurt himself in early September and then was activated for Game 1 of the World Series. He had hit in 5 straight World Series games and 6 of the 7 games, Game 2 being the lone one he didn't get a hit in. The Dodgers bounce back right away. Will Smith leads off the top of the fourth with a double off Scherzer. Bases are loaded, 1 out. The former Blue Jay Teoscar Hernandez is at the plate. He hits a line drive into left center field. Dalton Varsho comes in, makes a tremendous diving catch and a ballsy diving catch, because if that goes by him, that's at least 3 runs, possibly 4. Smith comes in to score on the sac fly, so it's 3-1. Top of the 6th, Tommy Edman, he hits a sacrifice fly to make it 3-2. The Blue Jays in the bottom of the 6th would get one of those runs back as Ernie Clement would get on base. Andrés Giménez, who was hit by a pitch by Jake Wrobleski in the bottom of the 4th, and after 2 up-and-in fastballs prior to that in the at-bat, it caused the benches to empty. Thankfully, there was no physical violence during that melee, but it definitely got the emotions riding high. He was trying to lay a bunt down to move Clement over to second. For the Dodgers, with their atrocious bullpen, let's be honest, they had a terrible bullpen all season long. It was all hands on deck. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who threw 96 pitches in Game 6 last night, was volunteering to go, just as I knew he would. And Dave Roberts was going to use all his starters, so he brings in Tyler Glasnow. Glasnow is pitching. He can't throw a strike to Giménez. Clement steals second, so John Schneider pulls back the bunt. Giménez hits a double into the gap in right center field to make it 4-2. Trey Savage, who had done a remarkable job in Game 5. He's been a tremendous story coming up in September and having the postseason that he's had. He gets through the 7th. He gives up a bomb, and I mean a towering bomb, to Max Muncy in the top of the 8th. That makes it 4-3. Jeff Hoffman comes in the closer and gets the final out of the inning. Then we go to the 9th. The Blue Jays, 3 outs away from the ultimate prize. Strikes out Kike Hernandez swinging. He gets Miguel Rojas to a 2-strike count. He throws a nasty breaking ball. I think it was a slider up and in. It was close. He couldn't get the call. It was the correct call by the home plate umpire, Jordan Baker. 3-2 pitch, Miguel Rojas, of all people, ties the game with a line drive home run to left field. It just had to happen. Game 7 of the World Series, Blue Jays 2 outs away from winning it. Tied. Bottom of the ninth, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. leads off. Blake Snell is now into the game. Guerrero hits one deep to the track in center field, but Tommy Edman makes the catch. Bo Bichette is at the plate. Bo Bichette, who hit the big home run in the bottom of the third inning and has a chance for another big moment here. He ends up hitting a line drive base hit into left field. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa comes in to pinch run. Addison Barger walks. It's runners at first and second now. Dave Roberts, well, he brings in Yamamoto. He's, after his 105 pitch complete game in game 2 of this series, he was getting ready to come in for the 19th inning in game 3, but Freddie Freeman, of course, hit the walk-off in the bottom of the 18th, so, service is no longer required. On that front for Yamamoto, he's brought in with runners at first and second and 1 out. Alejandro Kirk, who was hit by a pitch to start the bottom of the ninth last night, hit in the right forearm by a pitch here to load the bases. Dave Roberts did something that was very ballsy. He brought in the middle of all of this, just took out Tommy Edman and brought in Andy Pages to play center field. It's very rare when you make a defensive change mid-inning out of the blue. I mean, the only time I can really remember a manager making a defensive change in the middle of an inning out of a blue was June 18th, 1977, when Billy Martin wanted to embarrass Reggie Jackson at Fenway Park, so he sent in Paul Blair to play right field. And then, of course, he and Billy and Reggie had the infamous fight in the Fenway Park dugout. So the bases were loaded. Dodgers are playing the infield and outfield in at this situation. All you need is a base hit. All you need is a fly ball deep enough. So we get the ground ball to second base, and I want to show you a picture here. Miguel Rojas, who of course hit the game-tying home run, kind of double clutched on it by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. The runner at third did not get a double step off third base. Look at where Kiner-Falefa is off third base. He's barely off third base and should have a bigger lead as the pitch is coming in. If he has a bigger lead, he probably scores the winning run and the Blue Jays are world champions. So Kiner-Falefa's retired at the plate. Dalton Varsho, who was the hitter, he's at first. Ernie Clement's at the plate. He hits a high drive deep into left center field. Kike's going back. It's not looking like he has a beat on it. Andy Pages, who Doc had just brought in, he's running like the wind. He collides with Kike, and some way, somehow, Andy Pages makes the catch. An incredible catch to end one of the greatest innings of all time. It was a ninth inning for the ages. The Dodgers had the bases loaded with 1 out in the top of the 10th. They could not come through. Top of the 11th. Shane Bieber into the game, retires the first 2. Will Smith, 5 straight years that a Will Smith had won the World Series. The catcher Will Smith in 2020 and 2024 with the Dodgers, and then the left-handed reliever, a former Giant who would watch my post-game periscopes back on the day. True story. Especially the ones where I called on the Giants to trade him at the 2019 trade deadline. True story. He became the first man to ever win 3 separate world championships with 3 straight world championships with 3 separate teams. In 2021 with the Braves, 2022 with the Astros, 2023 with the Rangers. So 5 straight years, a Will Smith had won the World Series. Will Smith hits a bomb to left field, and the Dodgers have their first lead of the night. So Yamamoto, who got out of it in the 9th, pitched a scoreless 10th, back out for the 11th. Vlad Guerrero Jr. lines one down the left field line for a double. But here's the problem. As I had mentioned, Kyle, as you mentioned, the Blue Jays had wasted a ton of opportunities in these last two games. So tying run and Vlad Guerrero Jr. at second and nobody out. Kiner Falefa at the plate. His first at bat, he had pinch run for Bichette in the ninth. For whatever reason, John Schneider has him bunt. Now it's successful. He moves him over to third, but you're down to your final 3 outs of life on the season, bottom of the 11th inning of Game 7 of the World Series, and you're having a guy sacrifice? So it's up to Addison Barger. And Yamamoto, knowing that Alejandro Kirk was a great double play candidate, he walks Barger. Not intentionally, but I think it was kind of unintentional. He knew that, Kirk is someone who was capable of grinding into a double play. And that is exactly what happened. A little broken bat chopper to short. Mookie steps on second for one, throws to first for two. And guess what? Dodgers repeat as champions. Look, as a baseball fan, this was an incredible game. And the better team won. But I'll be honest, as a Giants fan, this really sucks. And I mean this really sucks. To watch your hated rivals win 2 straight titles like this. And you got to give it to the Dodgers. They did not have the best second half, but like the Giants in 2014, once those bright lights of October came on, they had the mindset of, okay, we've been here, boys. Let's turn it on. And that's what they did. Waltzing to the World Series, losing just one game. That was Game 3 of the NLDS to the Phillies. They had swept the Reds in 2 in the Wild Card Series, beat the Phillies in 4 in the Division Series, and swept the Brewers in 4 of the NLCS. And they remain on top of the baseball world. For the first time in 25 years, we have a repeat world champion. Now, maybe this can serve as some motivation for the Giants. You watch your hated rivals win 2 straight World Series. One of the cool things about the Giants' 3 titles in 5 years is we had 2 more world championships than the Dodgers. We had 8, Dodgers had 6. Well, now the Dodgers have 9. The Dodgers have tied the Red Sox and the A's for the 3rd most world championships of all time. 9. This sucks. I'm not going to lie. The Giants have only had one winning season and have only made the playoffs once in the last 9 years. They have had 6 losing seasons and 2 500 seasons. The last 4 years have been particularly mediocre. The Dodgers have just won their 2nd straight title, their 3rd in the last 10 years. So as a baseball fan, congratulations to the Dodgers. They earned it. Congratulations to Dave Roberts. He's certainly going to the Hall of Fame. But as a Giants fan, this really sucks. Now, I want to address something. As Kyle says, time to spend money in the offseason. You can't blame the Dodgers for this. Every single owner in baseball is filthy, 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 filthy rich. Every single one of them. Right now, the owners want a hard salary cap, and they're going to lock out the players next December because of it. But why do they want the hard salary cap? Because supposedly they can't afford to compete fairly with the Dodgers. Yeah, interesting how these owners who have made it clear for years, decades, and over a century that they are far more concerned about making profits than winning. Owners have made it clear for over a century that they wouldn't sacrifice one of their yachts for a championship Wait, now suddenly they care about winning and they care about the competitive integrity of the game? That's news to me. It's not that they're concerned about the integrity. It's that when teams like the Dodgers and Mets spend, it makes the rest of the owners look bad. That's the truth. Because it shows that teams are capable of spending, and the rest of the owners want to shut the Dodgers and the Mets up so the general public doesn't get the idea that teams can spend and put winning ahead of their profits, ahead of their mansions, their yachts, their Ferraris, their ticket on the Lolita Express, you name it. Now, I'm not implying the owners were on the Lolita Express, but with rich people in America, you never know. The Dodgers and the Mets make the rest of the owners look bad when they spend. They could all spend if they truly wanted to. They choose not to. And we need to be very, very clear about that. There is no need for a salary cap at all. And look, I'll be the first to tell you these players are way overpaid. Players are paid tens of millions of dollars. Well, the average American can't even afford groceries. But I want people to look at this chart right here. This is a chart. On the left, it's 2024 revenue. On the right, on the first column, there are 5 columns here. First column from left to right is 2024 revenue. Second column is the 2025 payroll and tax. Of course, there is a luxury tax if teams go over a certain threshold for a season. Third is tax payroll. Fourth is the luxury tax. The fifth is the percentage of the revenue in which they spend to win. The Mets spend 90% of their revenue to win. The Dodgers spend 73%. The Blue Jays spend 71.5%. Phillies 67.2%. The Diamondbacks of all teams 66.7%, but they're another team that has decided at certain points not to spend money. But look at some of these teams. The Miami Marlins, their revenue in 2024 was $317 million. They spent 27% of that this season. The White Sox, 31.6% of their revenue. The Rays, 33.8%. The Pirates, who are having a lot of ownership problems in Pittsburgh, 34.5%. Tom Ricketts, Cubs, 36.4%. The Guardians, 39.4%. The Brewers, who have a good team, who draw really well in Milwaukee, but it's rumored that they might tear up their current team when the players want to get paid. They pay 40.8% of their revenue. The Red Sox, and this is John Henry's team, 42.1%. 21 of the 30 teams, 70% of the teams spend less than half of their revenue money on payroll. Kyle says we need a salary floor. I would agree with that. The deal that I would make for the CBA is the players should at least offer it. We'll agree to a soft salary cap, meaning because the other sports leagues have them. It's not like the worst thing, but it's not needed. That a soft salary cap, like in the NBA, being that you can re-sign your current guys. No limit on your current guys, but when it comes to signing other free agents, there is a limit. The Players Association should offer, okay, we'll give you a soft salary cap in exchange for a salary floor and free agency after 3 years of service time. put the ball in Major League Baseball's court. But as you saw what I just showed you, you just saw the graphic. Every single one of these owners is filthy, filthy, rich. They choose not to spend money, and they only want a salary cap because the Mets and the Dodgers make them look bad and show the public that they can spend money if they want to. So they want to shut the Dodgers and the Mets up so they can make the general public believe they can't afford to spend the money when in fact they can. So no, you can't blame the Dodgers for this. As a Giants fan like myself, you could be upset about this, and I am upset as a Giants fan. This sucks. It sucks to see your hated rivals win back-to-back titles and to win 3 titles in 6 years. But as a baseball fan, I respect the Dodgers' history, their franchise. They've had an incredible franchise. They've had the greatest broadcaster ever in Vin Scully, the greatest pitcher ever in Sandy Koufax. And no, that is not my Jewish bias, but Sandy Koufax was the greatest pitcher of all time. And by the way, Sandy Koufax, doesn't he look amazing for a guy who's about to be 90? Dodgers have had an incredible history. But as a Giants fan, it sucks. As a baseball fan, I can respect their franchise and history. I can admire people like Vin Scully and Sandy Koufax. And Sandy Koufax, greatest pitcher of all time, greatest Jewish ball player of all time. Hank Greenberg second. Sean Green was a good Jewish ball player too. Steven Ruderman was a really horrible Jewish ball player. Zach Navarra, Kyle Foster, and Devin Cordova are all in the comments. I'll get to your questions in a minute. Can you let me do my spiel, please? Thank you. But as a baseball fan, I not only respect, I appreciate that the Dodgers have an ownership group that puts winning ahead of profits. If we had 30 owners that would be willing to do that, this game would look a lot different. So don't blame the Dodgers. Blame the owners. Blame the majority of these filthy rich owners who refuse to spend money and won't even sacrifice a yacht for a world championship. Blame them, not the Dodgers. They deserve to repeat as champions. They do what most other teams won't do and spend money. They deserve to repeat as champions. And what sucks, I think they'll probably three-peat. It's like when the Lakers won 3 straight in the early 2000s. That sucked as a Kings fan. And Kyle said it. They also make profits because they have Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, and Yamamoto. That's why. And here's the thing, other owners, spend more money, put a better product on the field, more fans will come to games, more fans will buy the outrageously priced hot dogs and beers and jerseys and caps and sweatshirts and mugs. More people will watch your games, and guess what? You'll have more revenue. It's not that hard. It's just not. Let's talk about Yamamoto. I love this guy. I hate that the Dodgers won, but as a baseball fan, this guy is such a gamer. 105 pitch complete game in game 2, and he's like, I'll pitch the 19th inning. Throws 96 pitches last night. And says, I'm pitching tonight. And he was, in fact, like, I'm pitching tonight. He wanted to go there. He wanted to take the ball. He really did. He was waiting. He was chomping at the bit to come in, and he got to. And he is the man who got it done and is very deserving of the World Series MVP award. a tip of my hat to Yoshinobu Yamamoto as a baseball fan, as a disgruntled baseball lifer, to see that there are players like Yamamoto who really care about winning and will do whatever it takes to win. I'm doing a live show, and as a result, I've got a comment section, and I just want to say to the 3 people in my comment section, let's play nice, kids. All right, let's play nice. We don't have to be at each other's throats here. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but come on, guys. I've got a gazillion people asking me questions here. Okay, 3 people, but it's a gazillion questions, and I'm trying to get to my spiel. I really, I was really inspired by Freddie Freeman playing injured in the postseason last year. I was really inspired by Shohei Ohtani after hurting himself in Game 2 of the World Series last year, playing in Games 3 through 5. I'll tell you a guy who I really dig, and that's Mookie Betts. Guy's a real winner, hustles. I just really dig Mookie Betts. And the thing is with the Dodgers, they've got a good team chemistry. That's also very important. And the Dodgers definitely have changed things up over the last 2 years because, of course, for years, other than 2020, they couldn't get the job done. There was an arrogance with the Dodgers for a long time, and I think they put that arrogance aside last year. And when you don't play arrogant, that will go a long way. I mean, being arrogant is what got the Giants in trouble in the mid-2010s. That's what got them in trouble in 2016 and 2017. To be honest, the Giants were sore losers after 2016. They couldn't let it go. They show up to spring training in 2017 bitching about, oh, we should have won that game. And well, you lose 98 games. Well, it also helps when you bring in Yamamoto, you bring in Shohei Ohtani, and then this year you bring in Roki Sasaki. But the Dodgers definitely were doing things differently. They weren't relying as much on home runs these last 2 years that they did in this World Series. Dodgers have definitely done things differently the last 2 years, and especially getting contributions throughout the lineup. Last year, Tommy Edman was the MVP of the NLCS. This year, Miguel Rojas hits the game-tying home run in Game 7 of the World Series. The Dodgers, look, they may have 3 future first-ballot Hall of Famers in their starting lineup, but they've got some grit on that team. They play hard. They show up at the park every day expecting to win. And so I can appreciate that about the Dodgers. And as a Giants fan, I can only hope that this will serve as a source of motivation for the Giants going forward. The Giants, of course, have hired Tony Vitello. I'm going to do a show with Sam Lubman and Bruce McGowan at some point in the next couple weeks about Tony Vitello, maybe at some point in 1 or 2 weeks. I'm really excited about this hire, as long as he's the guy managing the game. And let's talk about managing the game here. John Schneider does not seem to be the guy managing the games here. And I loved it when he was going to pull Scherzer in Game 4 of the ALCS. And Scherzer's just staring at him like, no, you're not pulling me from this game. And Schneider backed down. Pulling Scherzer in the 5th inning in Game 3 of this series. Pulling Scherzer, I think he pulled him in the 4th tonight. No, he pulled him in, did he pull him in the 4th or the 5th? The 5th. I wasn't keeping score. I loved the Tony Vitello signing, and we'll get to that in a minute. I will talk about that. But John Schneider pulls Scherzer in the 5th. He has Kiner Falefa bunt. And it's like, is this guy managing the game, or are the nerds managing the game? And I feel like with the Dodgers, Roberts has also been given more leeway to manage his games the last couple years. Tony Vitello, he's a revolutionary hire, boys. First time a college head coach with no experience playing, coaching, managing in organized professional baseball has gone straight from coaching a college team to being a big league manager. I'm excited about it. And people are like, well, Steven, I thought you were against new things in baseball. You don't like analytics. I don't like analytics because it dominates the game, because it is so anal and it is dominating the game. There's nothing wrong with analytics. I have Asperger's, okay? I like to be anal about certain things, but I like to be anal about like things like details and settings, things to that nature. I like to just know things, but I don't base my decisions off of those things. Analytics are valuable to have. Very valuable. But you shouldn't be playing based off them, which is what baseball has been doing for the last decade. Giants have like 10 to 15 analytics people. If I was in charge, it would be 3 to 5. More like 3 or 4. Analytics should be a small part of the overall art of baseball, but the unfortunate fact of the matter is that it dominates. We're firing longtime scouts, people who've given their lives, decades to this game, and replacing them with these Ivy League educated analytics people. And people say, Steven, you're so progressive politically, but you're so conservative when it comes to baseball. Analytics are very corporate. It's very classist. If you want to be in an analytics department, you got to go to an Ivy League school. If you want to go to an Ivy League school, then you need to have wealthy and well-connected parents. I know, so progressive. Have everything be super anal, where human mistakes are not tolerated. Case in point, the umpires. So next year, they are going to have an ABS challenge system. And this pisses me off because calling balls and strikes is an art, not a science. And look, don't go full Eric Gregg and call stuff in the other batter's box. But there are times and places to look for strikes. You'll hear Mike Krukow talk about it. So-and-so behind the plate, he looks for strikes. Now, granted, Krukow is an ex-pitcher, and so he's going to like guys who look for strikes. But umpires of old, they would look for strikes. It's about keeping the game moving. And now that you're making this super anal, this is going to lead to problems. The deal that I would make, the deal that I would begrudgingly make, would be to have a 2-inch buffer zone on all corners of the zone. Any pitch that hits that buffer zone, umpire's discretion, any and all challenges to calls on that buffer zone are upheld. Joe Morgan used to say that umpires have different interpretations of the strike zone. That's umpiring. I think what we should start with that 2-inch buffer zone and then go to a place where you keep because you still at least keep some of the art of calling balls and strikes. And pitches within 2 inches of the plate are very hittable. But what I think we should eventually try and move towards is a system to where if you challenge, you see it on the screen and the home plate umpire can look at it and look at the factors, look at where the batter's standing, look at where the pitch was, and he can think, okay, is this a hittable pitch? And then the plate umpire can either reverse his own call or uphold his own call. That would be the ideal kind of ABS system, where you can get a second look on the home plate umpire can get a second look on the scoreboard, not taking the stupid box into account, but thinking, okay, was this pitch in the grand scheme of things a strike? And when I think of a strike, I think a pitch that's hittable. For example, if you got a batter crowding the plate, I think an umpire should go 3 or 4 inches off the outside. Take those things into account. Zach says, I'm going to be honest, it feels like uniform box makes sense. Shouldn't it be a skill system, not an art system? No, it is an art system. It should be an art system. For example, if it's 10-0 and you're up at the plate as the team up 10-0, swing the bats. Last year, I think it was Scott Berry, and we're just insane how now we're bringing in position players to pitch. It used to be you'd only do that when it was like 19-0. And he threw a pitch, then it was like a foot off the plate. And the team that was up, it was like 14-2 or something. I think it was in Pittsburgh. I think it was the Pirates who were up 14-2. They were at the plate. Scott Berry called. It was like 14 inches off the outside. He called it a strike. Good. Especially when you have this pathetic display of position players throwing these 39-mile-an-hour eephus pitches. Get the game moving. And that's the problem with ABS. And if you do the ABS challenge system that I would ideally get to, the 2-inch buffer zone would be the start. But if we do the ABS challenge system, which I would get to, team taps the helmet, we do the challenge, we look at the scoreboard, and the plate umpire looks at it and says, you know what? It's 14-2. Swing the bats. Strike. Zach is saying, I'm saying as someone who doesn't really watch a potential new viewership, what would attract new viewership? Kyle says the ump behind the dish was great tonight. Jordan Baker, one of the best in the game. I think he was okay. I'll be honest. Jordan Baker's a great umpire. But it used to be the crew chief would open and close the series. The crew chief would get the plate in game 1 to set the tone in the series. And then if it went to a game 7, he would get the plate again. The crew chief would get 2 sticks. That's how it should be. Jordan Baker was not the crew chief of the series. Mark Wegner was. And since 2014, they've had 7-man umpire crews. From 2014 to 2019, they would have the plate umpire in game 1 work games 1 and 2, game 1 behind the plate, game 2 in right field, and then he would swap out with the replay guy in New York, and the replay guy would come in and work games 3 through 7 and work game 7 behind the plate. And the crew chief would work in 2014 and 2015 game 6, from 2015 to 2022, and again in 2024 and here in 2025. Game 3. The crew chief's going to work game 3. Are you kidding me? In 2023, Bill Miller, great umpire, he would have worked game 7 in that series. From 2020 through here this year, they changed it after the neutral site World Series in 2020 to where you have a reserve for 7 guys and a reserve for every game. And the guy who is slated to work the next game's plate is the reserve who comes in the event of an injury. Have a reserve, great. But at the very least, change it to where the crew chief has game 1 and game 7 behind the plate. And if it means one of the 7 guys not getting a plate in the series, so be it. That's how it should be. Zach says I would really caution a challenge system for a sport that has long run time issues. Hey, if it was up to me, there wouldn't be any replay whatsoever. None. Jordan Baker's a great umpire. I think he was okay tonight. I'm not going to say he was great. I think he was okay. I'm not one to critique umpires because I've done it and I suck at it. I'm just being honest. Or at least I was terrible this year, and I'll be honest, I let some personal stuff affect my performance on the field, and that's unacceptable, and I'm debating whether I'm going to keep doing it next year. We'll see. I think with me and umpiring, I need to be, because I'm someone who does well with one-on-one instruction and instruction by people who I'm close to. What I really need is to work games with people who I know and trust and who have done this a long time. And I haven't really had that opportunity to do this the last 3 years. But the fact that the crew chief works game three, I think Jordan Baker was okay, but I think Mark Wegner, a guy who's more experienced, should have game seven. Game seven of the World Series. I mean, that's the big kahuna. And I think you need to have the crew chief work in that game. Again, I'm not saying Jordan Baker did a bad job, but I think Mark Wegner, as the crew chief, should have worked the plate tonight. But I think Baker did an okay job. I'll be honest, I thought he was a little bit shaky. I think Baker's a great umpire, but this is only his 12th year as a full-time umpire, 14th total. He came up in 2012 as an up-and-down guy, worked 12 and 13 as an up-and-down guy, and was hired full-time in 14. This is only his 12th year as a full-time guy. I got the sense from him tonight that he was a bit shaky. I think so. As good of umpire as you are, you got to be like around 20 years when you're sticking game seven of the World Series. That's just my opinion. And I think the fact that he let Shohei Ohtani take, and look, as with two-way players, they can get more time. But I felt like Shohei was given too much time. And I felt like Jordan Baker, who is a great umpire. Jordan Baker is a great umpire. One of the best in the game. I feel like he should have given Shohei less time. And I think he did okay. I don't think he was bad. I'd give him a B minus C plus for his plate job tonight. But I think in game seven, it should be the crew chief working the plate. Now, on the positive, this was a great baseball season. This was a great baseball season. After, I think, one of the worst baseball seasons last year. There were not very many good team storylines last year. You did have the two great stories of the Mets and the Tigers going to the playoffs. But you had the Shohei being the first 50-50 guy, but that had a lot to do with lighter baseballs at bigger bases. But the quality of the play, look, baseball hasn't been as great with the nerds taking over the game. You have the one knee on the ground crap, which leads to a lot of pass balls and wild pitches. I mean, it used to be back in the day, you were taught to block the ball with your body, with your torso. Now, with guys on the one knee, they're just like picking it. And I get it for the sense of injuries. I think if it's nobody on less than two strikes, work the one knee on the ground. But just last year, not very good team storylines. A lot of mistakes, mental mistakes daily too, because when you have the analytics people in charge, you're not teaching a lot of these guys, and especially with development, as teams do, they're not teaching these guys basic fundamentals of baseball. So what happens? You see a lot of mental mistakes. In 2008, the Pharaoh, Eugenio Velez, who's currently serving a 10-year prison sentence for gun running in the Dominican Republic, he may have been the stupidest guy ever to play. This guy would make a mental mistake every single game. And he would talk about it like every game, every day. Eugenio would do something stupid. Now you see this kind of stuff every day. And it was at its worst last year, 2024, last season. And by the way, my Aspergian rules for baseball seasons, the official start of the baseball season is the first day of spring training games between two separate major league teams. And I say the official second it begins is when the sun comes up that morning on the East Coast. The official end of the baseball season, of course, the final game of the World Series. I say the official end comes after everyone leaves the park after the celebration. Like once they're on the flights, heading home, that's when, like in the morning, that's when the season officially ends. So as of right now, as of this edition of the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe postgame World Series postgame show. It is still baseball season. During the baseball season, last season, when I say last season, that means the previous year. When I say this season, that means the season we're currently in. When I say next season, that means 2026, the next year, the year after. When the off season begins, which it will in a matter of hours, maybe even minutes, I will say when we sign off, the baseball off season will officially begin. There is no this season. Last season will be the last year that was played. Next season will be the next year that was played. So from the time I sign off till the sun going up on the day of the first day of of spring training games between two separate major league teams, last season will refer to 2025. Next season will refer to 2026. Now, I do want to make a note. In 2019, there was one game on the first to be played. I think it was Thursday, February the 22nd or something. It was the Rangers and the Mariners, and surprise, it was cold, it was rainy, the game was banged after 4 innings, so it wasn't an official game. It was still baseball season because you had two major league teams playing against each other, you had major league umpires. That was still the official start of the Major League Baseball season. And until the end of this show, 2024 is last season, 2025 is this season, 2026 is next season. So let's get back to 2024. The play was just horrible. You had the jerseys, the pathetic see-through jerseys in which guys would work up a sweat on the North Pole. And the jerseys were basically paper towel. I went to the Giants dugout store on Sunday, April, I think it was April 7th of last year before the Giants played the Padres. It felt like paper towel. And you had the tiny lettering for the players' names on the back and the numbering. It was bad. And then you had the World Series end the way it did with Judge dropping the fly ball, the Yankees committing 2 errors, and Garrett Cole, a 12-year veteran, and by the way, the Yankees very analytically driven, very anal, Garrett Cole not covering the bag on the little, roller off the bat of Mookie Betts, which if he does, Yankees still lead at 5-0, and we're going to Dodger Stadium for Game 6. The fact that it ended that way, last year was the worst baseball season in my life. Just overall, just the way the game was played overall. This year was a great baseball season. This was a great baseball season. 23 was actually a great baseball season. 2025 was a great baseball season. There were great storylines, and this was one of the greatest postseasons of all time. You had the instant classic, the 15-inning thriller between the Tigers and the Mariners in Game 5 of the ALDS, in which Jorge Polanco got the base hit in the bottom of the 5th inning. You had an incredible ALCS in which the Blue Jays came back from down 3-2 to win it. You had a real fall classic. You did. This was a fall classic. This was a great baseball season. But knowing baseball, they'll blow it. You had a great season. And you'll probably have a good year next year too. But then what happens on December 1st next year? Lockout. And as Kyle said, 2025 will be known as the 500 teams getting hot and fading before getting hot again. Yep. And actually, John Smoltz made note of that in the first inning of Game 3 of the ALCS in Seattle, saying this was the streakiest season ever. That was kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. The theme of 2023 was the Cinderella team. And it was the Cinderella team and the Rangers that won it all. The theme of 2025, 500 teams getting hot and fading before getting hot again. Every season has its theme, and that was a cool theme. It was a good baseball season. An incredible postseason, capped off by a fall classic, capped off by a Game 7 for the ages. This was a great baseball game. Other than the Kiner-Falefa, the bad managing by Schneider, or let's be honest, the Nerds in Toronto, and Kiner-Falefa's short lead from third, it was well played. When, I was talking earlier about Dalton Varsho's great catch to rob Teoscar Hernandez of a hit. Next guy up, Tommy Edman, he pulls one, just scalds one down the line at first. Vlad Jr. dives to his left in foul territory, makes a spectacular catch. Great defense. This was just a great game. And what I say after this, as he had the best World Series rating since 2016, the best postseason ratings possibly since 2011, leave the game alone. No more changes. I've begrudgingly accepted the pitch clock. Pitchers were going too fast. I will admit that. I mean, we're going too slow. I will admit that. Guys like Bob Howery drove me nuts. But if we're going to do ABS, let's at least have a 2-inch buffer zone so we can be a little less anal about it and you can preserve some of the art of calling balls and strikes. I don't like the clock, and if it was up to me, I'd get rid of that thing. What I would do is have have umpires enforce a pace. Joe West would have been great at that. Where if you feel like a pitcher's going too slow, kind of like do this, but like warn him, hey, you keep going slow, I'm gonna call an automatic ball, or if a guy's on base, a balk. The pickoff limit is insane. However, I don't like it when guys make useless pickoff throws. So here's how I would handle that. The first day of umpire school, we are taught a phrase called common sense and fair play. And it's basically don't be a rule book lawyer. When it comes to throws at first, if you sense as an umpire in your judgment that a player is just making useless throws to first to waste time because he's scared to face to the batter, call a balk. But if he makes 18 throws and they're all bang bang nut cutter plays, let him do it. You got Dave Roberts at first base. Let him make as many throws as he wants because that is part of the game. It's the making the throws to first to waste time. That's what I don't like. And we should be able to penalize that. And instead of having a strict anal pickoff limit, use common sense and fair play and enforce that. If you think the pitcher's doing it to waste time, call a balk. Like if it's, you got a young scared pitcher out there and you've got Benji Molina at first base and he's throwing over there, maybe let him make one throw. But on the second throw, if you throw a second time with Benji Molina at first base and it's obvious it's a young pitcher who's too afraid to pitch to the batter, that's a balk. That's how I would do it. We do need to get rid of the pickoff limit. In terms of replay, the fact that we can spend 10, 20 seconds having the team's coaches and managers look at the play and determine whether they want to challenge it. Are you kidding me? How it should be done is you have to challenge on the spot. You get 2 challenges a game, and you get 60 seconds. And if you can't find anything after 60 seconds, call's upheld. Because things like replay and ABS should only be used to correct egregiously bad calls. If you can't find anything in 60 seconds, calls upheld. Each team gets 2 challenges a game, regular and postseason. And you get 60 seconds. Maybe in the postseason, 90 seconds. But 2 challenges a game, you have to make them on the spot. It could be done by a player. 60 seconds. If you can't find anything, calls upheld, play ball. So before we go, let's talk about Tony Vitello. This is a revolutionary move going back. I like change in baseball. I like it being revolutionary. And I love the Tony Vitello move. And as long as he's the guy managing, I love it. And I've talked about how society needs another 1960s counterculture against the clean cut, the sterile clean cut, buttoned up robotic corporate culture that dominates American society, sports, and pop culture. Giants are the perfect place to do it. Vitello, he lets his hair grow, and he's got a real personality. He's like Gabe Kapler, but with personality. I mean, Gabe Kapler was a complete robot. But Tony Vitello, he's got some real personality. And Drew Gilbert, who's like a real character, a real throwback, played for him, Vitello, in Tennessee. And look, guys going coaching college and then pro is common in the NFL. I like this move. And on a podcast a week and a half ago, Vitello was talking about the 1993 Phillies and how you had guys who had personality on that team. Now, granted, those guys were a little crazy. You know, Lenny Dykstra went to prison. Mitch Williams obviously had his problems. I know Darren Dalton had like a psychotic break. But John Kruk would talk about how after games, guys would stick around in the clubhouse, gather, drink beer, and talk about baseball deep into the night because they were a true team. They loved each other. And chemistry is everything. You do have to love each other for the most part. Not all the time. I mean, we saw the A's of the 70s three-peat with a horrible clubhouse. We saw the Yankees in 77 and 78 with a not so great clubhouse repeat as champions. But for the most part, you got to love each other. And I love that, these guys dedicated themselves to the game. And guys like Vitello and Drew Gilbert, they can bring that back. We need to bring personalities, characters back into baseball. And that is what I am trying to do. I want to bring personality back into the game. I want to be a character that people can laugh with or at. Someone who makes baseball entertaining. You know, one of the things I'm doing? I've got bald head in the Jufro, and I'm letting it grow out. It's kind of it's a screw you to the establishment. I'm not clean cut. I'm not corporate. I'm me. And Tony Vitello said, be yourself. I've thought about like calling a new countercultural movement the Be Yourself movement. Tony Vitello talks about being yourself. And he clarified, I asked him about this in the post-presser scrum, and he said, he clarified, like don't force it upon the team, let it develop naturally, which I absolutely 100% agree with. But he said, be yourself. That's what we need to do in society, and that is something that would help baseball go a long way. It would make it more entertaining for people to watch. It's the truth. Kyle said, will next year be interesting with Vitello? Yes, and he'll make mistakes. Yes, he will. So be it. Well said, my friend. 2026 is going to be, let's make 2026 the season in which baseball really becomes innovative, which we actually move baseball into the future in a way it should be moved in the future. Because yes, there should always be change. There should always be new things. Those new things, bringing college coaches in to manage. Bringing back personalities. You got the technology to get some of these, to get calls right. Let's keep the art form of calling balls and strikes and umpiring. And Dale Scott said in his book, umpiring is an art that allows you to, a natural balance between being super black and white and being super anal. Having a balance. And find that balance in baseball. Where, yes, analytics are valuable. It would be good for a team to have 3 or 4 analytics people. But there should be far more scouts than analytics people. You can have those analytics be there in case a manager wants to use them, but the manager should be in charge during the game. As for umpiring, calling balls and strikes and calls on the field, use replay to correct egregiously bad calls. But when it comes to bang calls and calling balls and strikes, keep the art form. Again, start ABS off with, 2-inch buffer zone and then work your way to a system where when it is challenged, the home plate umpire can look at his own call. And we're not using the box. We're not, ball's a ball, a strike's a strike. Yeah, screw that. The umpire can look at that and use all the determinations thinking of determinations of where the pitch was, where the batter's standing, whether the pitch was hittable. Even or a game situation, like if it's a blowout, look at the call and think, okay, you know what? I'm not sure that was a hittable pitch. I'll change it to a ball. And Kyle said, Buster has a vision to bring back old school baseball. Vitello has the energy that Melvin did. I feel horrible for Melvin. I really liked Bob. Though actually, I got a bone to pick with Bob. He's the reason the Dodgers won the World Series. That's right. The last 3 years in which he was in a Giants uniform, 1988 as a catcher, 2024 and 2025 as a manager, the Dodgers won the World Series. Melvin's gone. The curse is gonna be reversed. Oh, hail Buster! The great one has saved us. Thank you, Buster, my lord. But no, in all seriousness, I feel horrible for Melvin. And Melvin is a good manager. But let's be honest. He's in his 60s. He's managed 21 of the last 23 years. We saw what it did to Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy needed time away. Bochy was having heart problems. Tim Flannery has talked about how this game will physically kill you. It's been obvious since 2023, his second and final year in San Diego, that Melvin has been burned out. I'm just being honest. He's burned out. He's been at this a long time, and he needs a few years away from the dugout. He needs a good 2 or 3 years away from the dugout. It's not his fault what happened, but he was burned out. He was not the right man for the job, and Buster made the right move parting ways with him. I feel bad for Bob. Bob's a very good guy, loves this game, dedicated himself to the Giants, and this was his dream job. And it actually breaks my heart, but at the same time, it's the right move because it wasn't working out. You needed a guy with energy, and what I love about Vitello, they're like, well, a guy who coached college, is he going to get the most out of big league ball players? I think he will. I actually think he's the perfect guy to do it with today's breed of ball players. And the way that he just says, be yourself. Thank you. I want to talk about another thing he said in the press conference, that social media is not real life. And I said to him, as someone who's terminally online, thank you very much. And I am terminally online, and I need to approve on that. But social media is not real life. Exactly. And I think in society, I envision the kind of society in baseball and throughout America where instead of getting mad at people for things they say and punishing people for things they say, we call each other out in a fair and honest way to try and make each other better as people. If someone says something really inflammatory on social media, ask them, why did you say that? Try and make that person better. Hold each other account instead of getting angry at each other and wanting to quote unquote cancel people and blacklist people for things they may have said and done. Hold them accountable in a fair and honorable way and try to make each other let's hold each other accountable in fair and honorable ways and try and make each other better people. That is the kind of society I want to live in. And I think someone like Tony Vitello is the perfect guy to implement that in the Giants clubhouse. The Giants clubhouse can be the start of the counterculture. The Bay Area was the start of the counterculture in the 60s. Why can't the Giants clubhouse be the start of the counterculture in the 2020s? I think the players are going to respect Vitello. And I think it could lead to more college coaches getting hired. I'll tell you which one disgusts me. The Nationals' new manager, Blake Butera. 33 years young, the youngest guy to be hired a big league manager in 53 years. Possibly 54. I think 54. Why was he hired? Because he's going to be a corporate yes man who will do what he is told by the nerds in the Nationals front office. That's why he was hired. That is absolutely gross. Another thing I want to get on, the Rays have a new ownership. They're hoping to move into a new ballpark by 2029, which means they would need to announce it at some point in the next couple of months. Who knows? Maybe they will. It is time for Rob Manfred to expand. 32 teams ready to take the field for the 2029 season. Portland and Nashville. Let's do it. There's no reason not to. All right. Thanks for tuning in to this wild edition of the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe World Series postgame show for Devin Cordova, Zach Navarra, and Kyle Foster in the comments, who kept me entertained. I'm Steven Rube. I hope you enjoyed my show. Thank you for putting up with me. Have a good night. You'll hear a lot from me this offseason. We're going to really get this show moving in the offseason. I'm going to build a nice little set someplace, whether it, one of the two places I crash at. I'll build a nice set. I'm going to, I've got some good equipment. I'll use that equipment, get some good lighting, build a nice little studio. I'm going to get some guests, and we're just going to talk baseball. We're going to talk about moves by the Giants in particular, but also teams throughout the league. And we're really going to talk about this offseason, how we can make the game better. And we're going to talk about a lot, even now, 13 months out, about the impending lockout and the CBA negotiations. Because I think the goal right now, I hear people talk about, if we're not going to have 2027, so be it. No, I will not let that happen. There will be a 2027 Major League Baseball season. If it's 60 games like 2020, fine. But there's going to be a 2027 Major League Baseball season, and not having a season in 2027 is unacceptable. I think Kyle, Zach, and Devin, we can all agree on that. And so the work to ensure that there is a 2027 season begins right here and right now. We are not going to let that happen. We are not going to let them cancel an entire season. 2027 is not going to be a full 162 game season. It's going to be a truncated season. I can live with that. But what I will not live with and will not accept is a canceled baseball season. Thank you to everyone who has watched the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe all season long. Again, we're going to really kick this thing into full gear in the offseason and next season. I'm thinking I'm going to do a spring training trip where I can do some interviews with players and coaches. I've got some people who I know in media and other facets of the baseball world who I'd love to have on during the offseason. We'll make something out of this. Thanks to everyone who tuned in this season. Have a good night, and I will talk to you soon.